Hey everybody, and welcome to Robin's house. Today I wanted to go over some of the cards that I've made using the Happiest Place stamp set and thin cuts because I did a few new and different things that I just wanted to tell you about. So the first card is actually one of the cards that Close to My Heart's going to be doing on August 27th. This card here, but you can see that I changed it up a little bit. And I did, so the stamp is supposed to be stamped in candy apple. But then I thought, well, it would be fun if I wanted to do that, but do it in emboss it so that there was a tiny little bit of texture to the top of this castle. And one thing with red inks, it's so strange. When you add another item to red ink, it turns a little on the orangey side, so do be aware of that. So Stickles will do that, and Shimmer Brush sometimes does that, and now you can see that Versamark also will do that a little bit. So the candy apple is obviously way brighter than using the embossing powder, the clear embossing powder, just to enhance it. But what I decided to do was use the red Christmas glitter embossing powder, so my castle actually has some sparkles in there, so I thought that was fun. And then in addition to that, first of all, this castle is part of the word home here, but since I wasn't using the home word, I just wanted the castle, so I just snipped my little castle right out of there, and I can easily put it back if I do want to say home. But the other part of that is the thin cuts that go with the home. So I wasn't terribly excited about fussy cutting all those little flags. So I just sent my castle through the Big Shot, and then all I had to do was cut the little edges and the sides from the home words, and that was super easy. So that's a little trick you can do if you want to save some time. My second card, and now this card does not look terribly amazing in that it looked much better in my head than it did on the card, but I did do a few things that I wanted to go over with you anyway. So I used my thin cuts to cut out the base and the top paper of this cardstock so that I would have my fireworks on the inside of the card, but when it was closed, it was also on the outside. Additionally, I cut another thin cut here so you can see that the white embossing powder is actually on solid black, so I cut out another firework out of the stars. And then those two pieces I used with the gold embossing powder, and I put those on the top. And then I cut out a third one and used, again, that red glitter embossing powder to create that fifth firework. So it has lots of layers on here, and even more when you open it up. So that was a little different. It was also fun getting this this rather large, this is a 5-inch across base through the Big Shot, so you can't really tell, but it is a little crinkled on the side because I forced it through by wrapping my whole card base around one of those platforms. So tricky, but still kind of on the cool side. And then finally, I saw this card and I wanted to try it. This one has 2 layers of white that are the same size, and then you take those die cuts of the balloons and you cut out 1 layer on the top and then do your stamping, or in this case I pasted some other paper in there. I wasn't quite happy with how the bottoms of my balloons turned out. I wasn't quite sure how to deal with that part. So I tried it with balloons that actually come with the stamp set, and I thought it turned out really well. There are some tricks with this though. So this one the same. It has the balloons cut out of that top layer and then stamped on the second layer. So I want to show you how to do this so you can do one on your own. So the first thing you gotta do is take your blank piece of paper. You make two of these that are the same, but one of them you use your thin cuts on and the other one is the base below it. So you use your thin cuts and you cut the 3 balloon shapes, keeping in mind if you want a little message and your little Mickey Mouse up there. So I used my thin cuts to create my shapes. Now when you're going to cut, you're supposed to then put them one on top of each other because you need to know where those balloons are going to go. So you put it one on top of each other and you can see even in this video, it's a little hard to see where the lines are. So if you have trouble with that, I recommend doing a second die cut and just either fitting it over the top or fitting it in place of, but I'm just going to put it here on top so that I know that it's exactly the same and it might be easier for you to see. So when I was trying to cut these in the first place, this stamp set comes, there's a string, the bottom of the balloon, the top of the balloon, and the little dots. So those are in 3 different pieces, and you would think that you would just, I wanted to start with black because black is really hard to see through. However, if you start with the black and then do the red and then do the string, your string doesn't match where you want it to go. But when you start with the string and then do the red and then do the black, then your string matches how it's supposed to be. Can you see the difference in those 2 strings? So that is one of my tips, is start with the string. You can also see here on several different ways. I find that when you start with the balloon first and then do the string just doesn't match up anymore. So anyway, so we're going to start with the string. So I've got my papers all lined up and ready to go. And I'll just stamp right in that nice space that this black cardstock is allowing me. There we go. Now it's time for the red. Now the red you want to stamp so that the very bottom of the red balloon, I don't know, the tied part, hits the top of that string, and let's get this down a little bit closer. And the bow for the balloon is hitting that skinniest part of the balloon. So line those up. Oh, this all turned out nicely. Now the trickiest part is getting these black tops to fall into the correct place, because you can slide it to the right or the left. The black, it's really hard to see the black ink through the stamp set. So let's see how it looks. Well, that one came out pretty well. You have a tiniest bit of space for on the far side. That's probably as good as it's going to get. And I really probably don't really need this anymore. All I'm really aiming for is the line here at the top of my balloons. There you go, that one came out perfect. So how might I fix that one? So my idea is that I might just ink up the very top of my red block. See if I can fill in that space. So it's not perfect, but I filled it in a little better. Okay, and now we can just quickly add those cute little dots. Okay, so that part is done. We've got all our stamping done on the base piece. But we do, of course, still need to stamp the best day ever words on that top piece. Doing this after it is got foam squares on it will make a very fluffy base. Okay, so now what we get to do is we get to turn it over. Bring it back up again a little bit. So we turn it over and we want to add some foam squares. Okay, so we've got some foam squares added. And then we just need to take the backing off of that. There we go. So when I'm doing this, I like to start with the bottom because this bottom pieces really need to line up because you can see in the crack where the bottom of this one is. So I like to line up mine with this bottom one here first. So I get that one in the way corner, kind of set it in there. And then that one in the way corner, and then I'll push those down. And then I'll try to get these aimed to their corners as well as I'm setting those down. So now we have a perfectly aligned little sandwich. Got your stamping on the bottom layer, your cutouts on the top layer, and then we've got our message here. So now we can build the card. So when I made this card base, what I like to do is I start out with an envelope. Find an envelope in a size that I have, and then make my card base fit inside of that envelope. So that is how I started with this one. And then add your base paper. Add your sandwich. This is such a fun technique to try with. You could use flowers, you could use whatever the stamp set that you want, and you can get the same effect of having that lovely two-layer. And then you can use, like I used my little Mickey Mouse, or you could use those acrylic shapes to add to your project. I'm kind of going with Mickey Mouse here, so I'll go ahead and use him. And we just need to add some black block dots to my project, and it is done. So how cute is that with some balloons going up into your cards? I hope you learned some fun new things about die cuts, and you all have a very crafty day, and thanks for watching.